So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome all the way from Prince Edward Island, Mr. Shane Pendergast and his friend. Who's your friend?
Well, we're landing in Luke's place where the tea is always hot, and we're logging our guitars to his warm and welcome spot. We'll sit around the table and we'll belt our songs and glee. If you want to make me satisfied, just give me tunes and tea. Tunes and tea, tea and tunes. Play guitar and play the spoons. We're jigging and singing and swinging tonight. Tea and tunes and tea. That's the life for me. With tea and tunes, you're bound to feel alright. In the summertime, the Kayleys out from hibernation come, with guitars, flutes, and fiddles, and the old accordion. Oh, the people come from all around to hear and laugh and see us funny-looking fellas playing tunes and drinking tea. Tunes and tea, tea and tunes. Play guitar, play the spoons. We're jigging and singing and swinging tonight. Tea and tunes and tea. That's the life for me. With tea and tunes, you're bound to feel alright. Well, it's a mighty fine tradition when the songs begin to flow. Reminds us of our ancestors who wrote them long ago. I'm a-thinking about the future, though I wonder where we'll be. I hope we'll all be singing tunes and drinking lots of tea. Tunes and tea, tea and tunes. Play guitar and play the spoons. We're jigging and singing and swinging tonight. Tea and tunes and tea. That's the life for me. With tea and tunes, you're bound to feel alright. Tunes and tea, tea and tunes. Play guitar, play the spoons. We're jigging and singing tonight. Tea and tunes and tea. That's the life for me. With tea and tunes, you're bound to feel alright. I said with tea and tunes, you're bound to feel alright. And the song's called The Fiddler's Gift. Matthias McGinnis from Blooming Point was he, the fiddler at the parties round the Bay of Tragedy. Though the neighbors christened him the finest of musicians, behind closed doors they whispered of his ghostly premonitions. Matthias walked to the general store one morning with a chap, when all at once he turned right pale and he lifted off his cap. Well, his friend asked, "What's the matter?" And Matthias in dismay said, "Don't you see the horse and hearse a-coming down the way?" Within the week, the toll of church bells echoed round the bay. Matthias had foreseen it, someone had passed away. One night at old Macaulay's, the big soiree was on. Matthias was fiddling, hired to play on till the dawn. When all at once he stopped his bow, he would not play no more. Well, he asked Macaulay for his coat and he headed for the door. "Did somebody insult you?" asked Macaulay, quite confused. Matthias said, "If you had seen what I've seen, you'd leave too. For I saw 6 ghostly caskets, plain as the midday sun, floating slowly out the parlor window one by one. Within the year, 6 Macaulays of that house fell dead. Oh, the coffins too wide for the door were brought through the window instead." Ho! I'm gonna stick with the historical songs for one more. I don't know how historical that. I mean, that's more of a folklore tale. I don't know how much of it is really true, but this next one is definitely true, and it's a story about rum running on PEI, which of course was a huge thing. We had the longest term of prohibition anywhere in Canada. It lasted for almost 50 years, 49 years. So it's sort of seeing as this whole thing with marijuana being legalized and all that, sort of another sort of era of prohibition has ended. But I was doing some reading on rum running and reading about this famous schooner that was involved called the Nellie J. Banks. And this was one of the more notorious of rum running boats. There was a 3-mile limit outside of the waters of PEI or any province there on the East Coast, and as long as your boat was outside those 3 miles, the government cutters, the RCMP, couldn't come arrest you for having rum in your boat because you were technically in international waters. But as soon as you came in past those 3 miles, then they couldn't take you in and arrest you. So the rum running boats would be very smart, and they'd just wait out there at 3 miles. Out would come the rum runners to pick up the rum and bring it back to shore so everybody could have a good time. Now, how did they get the Nellie J. Banks? Well, they just went to Ottawa and they changed the law. They changed it from a 3-mile limit to a 12-mile limit. So next thing you know, here's the Nellie J. Banks sitting out past 3 miles. They felt pretty good, and they see the government boats coming around. They're not too worried, and the government just comes and arrests them and says, well, we changed the law on you and you never knew. So they sort of tricked them. So this is the story of the seizure of the Nellie J. Banks. Told from the point of view of the captain of the boat, Israel Lillington of Newfoundland. It's called Lillingtons Limit. I've seen the last of brandy and my schooner's had her day. No more to tease those cursed cutters dashing round the bay. My running days are over now, no more I'll watch the tide when I was well outside the 3-mile limit. We filled our hull at St. Pierre and we put out for Glace Bay. But with cutters thick as mussel beds, we soon were underway. Round Cape North to East Point, and by morning we were spied. But I was well outside the 3-mile limit. Helping out on the 3-mile limit part, that'd be really fun. Oh, the Ona came up to us and they blew their whistle thrice, while I lay languid in the forecastle, brandy had me tight. But when they fired a warning shot, I started up to rise, but I was well outside the 3-mile limit. Williams brought a tow line as they boarded Nellie J. They spoke of seizing contraband and towing us away. Now it is true we carry liquor, but you know as well as I that I am well outside the 3-mile limit. 3-mile limit. Then Milthorpe looked me in the eye. A crime you did commit, for Ottawa has changed the law to a 12-mile limit. So I've seen the last of brandy, and my schooner's had her day. No more to tease those cursed cutters dashing round the bay. Or I'll see those runners, no more I'll watch the tide. But I was well outside the 3-mile limit. 3-mile limit. 3-mile limit.
Thank you.
So this is sort of a crazy song. It's a made-up tale. Enough of these history songs. And it's a story about some fellas who think they've struck it rich, but really it was all a trick. And it's called The Gold at Oyster Cove.
Storyteller who lived in my hometown. We'd visit him on dreary days and watch the rain pour down. 'Twas only tea and small talk till his wife went off to bed. Then out would come the stories and the bottle of rum instead. One night his face grew solemn and his voice went awful low. He told a tale of pirates who sailed down the hills below. Beneath the willow tree they buried treasures of the best, and nailed a cross onto that tree to mark their hidden chest. Well, I'd go and find that treasure if I was not so old. But if you burly boys can dig it up, we'll split the gold. And so the deal was struck, we could scarcely hold our smiles, as he leaned in and whispered the directions to our prize. Walk along the railroad tracks, turn down McKenna's field. Keep walking to the shore to find that cross upon the tree. Then take your shovel to the earth, you're sure to find a trove. A real arresting sight to see, the gold at Oyster Cove. 'Twas early the next morning when we set off on our quest, our feet a-flying through the dew to reach that treasure chest. And when we came upon the cove, we stood in awe to see, just as the storyteller claimed a cross upon the tree. So we commenced to digging and finding naught but rocks. So 6 feet down our shovels tapped upon the wooden box. When all at once we heard the sound of hoofprints drawing close, we turned around in shock to see a lawman on a horse. He said, "Put down your shovels, lads, and don't you try and run. You're going to the jailhouse for the crime that you have done." When I awoke this morning, a telegram I found that told of robbers heading for the settlers' burial ground. And walked along the railroad tracks, turned down McKenna's field. Keep walking to the shore to find that cross upon the tree. Then take your shovels to the earth, you're sure to find a trove. A real arresting sight to see, the gold at Oyster Cove. The object of our digging was, alas, no treasure chest, but some poor settler's coffin that had long been laid to rest. And when we tried to state our case, the lawman would not budge. Said he, "You'll have to save your petty pouting for the judge." It seemed that storyteller, he had mischief in his eye. His tale of pirate treasure, it was nothing but a lie. For we were no grave robbers, but a grave mistake we made, to trust that storyteller for the devil he had played. So now in cramped confinement, we wait
wait to be set free. While drink in hand, the storyteller laughs and slaps his knee. So take heed to my warning, just as the adage says. If something sounds too rosy to be true, it always is. And walk along the railroad tracks, turn down McKenna's field. Keep walking to the shore to find that cross upon the tree. Then take your shovels to the earth, you're sure to find a trove. A real resting sight to see, the gold at Oyster Cove. Get some hands together.
You will find a troubled soul behind the gliding melodies, those sweeping, sliding remedies that do not last for long, enchanting all the people with a dazzling flit and flurry, concealing private fury from the cheering of the throng. His fiddle tunes tell tales of life before it reels to quiet airs, laments of manifest despair, lullabies of peace. But though they're sure to cast a spell, he knows these sharps and flats too well. What's on his page, no one can tell. The rosin hides the squeaks. Maybe for a moment, when he had a good tune going, the stomping and the clapping will drown away the pain. Lost there in the music, just the perfect tuning. Fiddler, he was full of joy again. There is a glaring silence now within the old-time Cayley Hall. No music to be heard at all. The crowds have gone away. But if you keep a careful ear, sweet echoes of his tunes you'll hear, resounding in the summer air. If only they would stay. And one final line is forming now to thank him for the joy he gave, for all the magic he has made that spread throughout the room. His boa wand he'd cast the spells, but on the stage no one could tell that off the stage the magic ends, the music's gone too soon. But maybe for a moment, when he had a good tune going, the stomping and the clapping would drown away the pain. Lost there in the music, just the perfect tuning. The fiddler, he was full of joy again. The fiddler, he was full of joy again. It's my good friend Nathan. They didn't know how to play the fiddle. And there was nobody in that vicinity, you know, who could play the fiddle. So they used to have these little events that they'd call Tiddle-Dum Sprees, and you just diddle the tune, sort of like that, and people would dance all night. So this song is called Tiddle-Dum Spree. Finish up with that. Finish up on a high note.
you know,